I started a new me, and hopefully you'll get some tips for how you can do likewise. Does that sound like a good plan? All right, good. So one of my earliest memories was sitting in a high chair and rolling out bread to make unique childish bread formations. I was raised by a vegetarian, God-fearing, health-conscious mother. And despite her best efforts to instill good habits into her children, I enjoyed going over to my friend's home and eating the rich American fare. But I had a problem. As long as I can remember, I could go no longer than 4 hours without food, and I was eventually diagnosed with severe hypoglycemia. That was eventually followed by other diagnoses like heart murmur and heart dysrhythmia, fibroids, cysts, kidney stones. That's not fun. And frequent infections, of which I was hospitalized twice. And I can go on with my list. A lot of female issues. And had IBS with diarrhea, and it always presented itself at the most inopportune times. ADHD, Raynaud's, etc. The list goes on. But I eventually became a dietitian, and I knew a lot about food and the physiology of digestion, but the reality remained that to say no to sweets was a near impossibility for me. Can you relate? Yeah, I heard that swell of excitement this morning. So I continued with my hypoglycemic episodes and other problems until I met, do you recognize that man? Marty. So Marty had so many allergies, I called him allergic to earth. If it had a common name to it, he was allergic to it. So after much research, we determined that the best diet and a lifestyle to go along with that to reverse allergies was going to be a whole food, plant-based program. So no animal products, no refined foods, sugars, oils, no cheats. And we had to do this for a whole year. So Marty isn't a cook, so I started cooking for him. And of course, what I was cooking for him, I was eating as well. So in a short time, I noticed that I no longer had any hypoglycemic episodes. No heart dysrhythmia and no IBS episodes, and all my female problems went away. But then, 3 months later, we're 3 months into the whole food plant-based program, okay? So 3 months later, Marty and I drive past, that place that has that nice, cold, smooth cream. Yeah. So, Dairy Queen. And so you know what happened, right? I see the nods. So for the next 3 years, we yo-yoed back and forth between the standard American diet and the whole food plant-based diet, but we never stuck to a whole food plant-based program for longer than 3 months. You got it. And we always fell off with ice cream. Yes, sugar in the ice cream. So by the end of 3 years, I was convinced the whole food plant-based program was my ticket to health. But how was I going to stick to it? So the victory finally came a year after Marty and I were married. And I told God, I know this is the way I need to eat for my health, but putting that knowledge into action, I can't do it. But you have promised to give us strength in all things. And so I'm committing my food to you for 1 whole year. And I'm going to start on my birthday, so I'll know when the year is up. You know how we are. And so that's exactly what I did. So Marty bought me a watermelon and put candles in it for my cake. And he bought me a Bible for my present. I did not know I was going on a spiritual journey, but I most certainly was. So from the beginning, my blood sugar was perfect. By day 3, diarrhea was gone. We sat and ate the watermelon and spit the seeds out. We had a little stoop, and so sat on there when we spit the seeds out. So I had a very nice clean out. Yeah. And then I had no more diarrhea. So my heart rate was normal. And so I made it 3 months. I made it 4 months. I made it 5 months. And in the 5th month, I was pregnant. I had been told in my teens that I would not have children. That was repeated to me in my 20s. And so I always referred to myself as barren because everybody in the Bible who was barren always had children. So long before I was ever married, I called myself barren. But anyway, God got to have the ultimate word, didn't he? So I delivered my daughter, and I was going to breastfeed. So by God's grace, I stuck to the program for over 2 years. I didn't have a single health problem. I didn't have a single hypoglycemia episode. But the day I weaned my daughter, what did I do? And cheesecake, my 2 favorites. So thank you, God, for 2 years of perfect health. Now I'm going to eat health-destroying food to celebrate my perfect health. Does it make sense? It doesn't, but that's exactly how we relate to food, isn't it? Yeah. So I'd only committed 1 year, and I had gone 2 years, actually more than 2 years. I'd been really good, and I deserved, right, to have a special celebration. Can you relate? This is how we rationalize, right? So God has something better for us. Yeah? Yeah? Did I have to celebrate with food? No. But that's exactly what I did. So it wasn't too long, and guess what? My hypoglycemia started coming back. I started having health problems. So 3 months later, my sister comes to visit. And we're eating at Cattle Baron. And I topped the meal off with fried ice cream. She looked at my meal. The whole time she's like staring at my plate. But I ignored it. And finally she just couldn't handle it anymore when the fried ice cream came out. And she says, "I thought you didn't eat like this anymore." And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh. Now I had been sharing with my family all the wonderful health experiences I was having, like truly having health. And, it just seemed like it was going in one ear and out the other. No one was listening to me. Well, they were listening, weren't they? We never go anywhere alone, do we? Our circle of influence is always watching everything that we do. True? Absolutely. So I realized this is more than just my choices. I'm affecting my husband, my daughter, and obviously my extended family as well. And so I decided my actions needed to match the words that I had been speaking before. And so that night, I knelt down by my bed and I recommitted my food to God, not for 1 year, not for 2 years, but for my whole life. And that's when the Start a New You program was born. So today, I am hypoglycemic free. I no longer have any episodes of IBS. No heart murmur. In fact, I can't remember how long it's been since a heart murmur was detected on me, but I went to the dentist, and they asked for your history. This was before I moved to Arkansas, so it's at least been 10 years ago. And I checked heart murmur for history, not present, but history. Well, he wouldn't treat me because I had checked heart murmur and I wasn't going to take the antibiotic. So I said, "I don't have a heart murmur now. You asked for history." He says, "Just don't write it on there because I have to have you take an antibiotic even if it's just history." So that was probably a couple or more years from us moving to Arkansas. So it's been a while since a heart murmur was detected, and no dysrhythmias at all, and no kidney stones. I mean, it's just a complete change around. And this is the power of God's program. But I have to tell you, the battle is real. It's an everyday battle to make the choices to cooperate with God and to acknowledge His plan is supreme in my life. Can you relate? Yeah, it's real. All right, so what about Marty? He's here. You can talk to him. You can ask him. But I would say that he will be the first to tell you he doesn't follow it 100%. Yes? There you go. But he has still received benefits over the last 29 years because I am his cook. So his biggest improvements have been better sleep, but improved digestion, and at his last, which has been a while, but at his last allergy test, he was allergic to potatoes and mustard. Now that's a whole lot better than being allergic to earth, don't you think? Yeah, absolutely. So he's off all medication, including pain medication, except for an occasional allergy medication. So that's the power of God's program. So what about you? You know, we don't have to be victims of sickness and disease. We can control, even potentially reverse disease by making a few simple changes to the way we live, our lifestyle, what we eat, drink, sleep, even think. This is our lifestyle. And so we can tap into the power of God even in our weakest links. Weakest points, I should say. I call them weak links in our body. That's where disease settles. So, you know, most Americans are walking around as a ball of inflammation. But they don't know it, you know? Because God has created our body so wonderfully that it doesn't even throw out its first complaint until it is, anyone know how much compromised it needs to be before it throws out its first complaint? You want to venture a guess? 70%. Any other ventures? 80%. 90. Okay, you guys are a great class. So 70 to 90%. It's true. You are all right. That's correct. Yeah, 70 to 90%. You think about that. That's amazing. There is no other machine on earth that can be 70% or 90% compromised and still be functioning. Like, fairly well, right? I mean, it's just amazing. So in other words, our body is going to put up with a whole lot of abuse, whole lot of garbage in our system until it absolutely can't handle it anymore. And then it's going to seem all of the sudden we're sick, right? That we suddenly have this problem. So Johnny was one of the fortunate ones that heeded the early warning signs, and she took action. And so she shares her story with us, and here it goes. I suffered from chronic generalized anxiety, shortness of breath, severe eye inflammation, and acid reflux. I knew I needed to change my lifestyle, but felt overwhelmed about where to start. It can be difficult sometimes figuring that out, right? I had heard of the Start a New You program, and the program content sparked my interest. It also didn't hurt that my medical practitioner warned me that without change, I was a perfect candidate for a cardiac event. That was the motivation I needed. Through the Start a New You program, I changed my life and lifestyle. The difference in my health and attitude is amazing. I have more energy, less brain fog, sleep better, and eat nutritious foods that I actually like. I was a notoriously lifelong picky eater before. Starting a daily exercise program and particularly taking walks outdoors has helped reduce my anxiety and has been beneficial in strengthening my lungs. My medical practitioners agree with me that this program has significantly helped me. I am no longer a candidate for a cardiac event. My eye inflammation is gone, and I no longer need medication for acid reflux. I am also proud to say I have lost 10 pounds. If you work this program works. And I'm also proud to say that Johnny was baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church in August of 2023. So God not only offers us a health plan, but he offers us a saving health plan. Did you know that in the Hebrew language, health and salvation are the same word? We'll look at that this evening in more detail. So imagine having your energy back without inflammation and pain, no longer being a sitting duck for a heart attack. This is the power of cooperating with God to achieve our best health. How's that sound? All right, is it possible for you? Let's find out. But first, I want to introduce to you a coconut stretch. Anyone here familiar with a coconut stretch? Oh, I got one. All right, everyone up and out of their seats. You know YMCA, right? And you spell it out with your body. Okay, there you go. Yeah, there you go. So we're going to do it with coconut instead. So here we go. C-O-C-O-N-U-T. Now we're going to circulate and get some blood flowing. So spread on out, get your arms a-going. There you go. Let's turn them backwards. Let's do them big. There you go. Get those shoulders worked out. It's okay if you can't do it. Go the other way. Yep, just do what you can do. That's great. Now we're going to do a balance check. So turn around. And let's go down for one squat. There's one, and back up. And give yourself a hand. And drink some water. And I think I must have left my water back there. Can you bring it? So that is the coconut stretch. I had a elementary teacher, thank you so much. Had an elementary teacher in my Start a New You program. She laughed through the whole thing. The next day, guess what she was doing in her classroom? They were all doing coconut stretches. All right, so that gives us better blood flow to our brain so that we can actually remember how to cooperate with God to achieve our best health. So let's talk about inflammation and the basics of inflammation. So inflammation is actually a very important mechanism within the body. It's its first initial, that's the same thing, but it's the initial response to protect and prevent the spread of infection or disease or toxins or bumps and bruises, whatever, right? So inflammation is very necessary in our system, but if inflammation goes unchecked and it becomes chronic inflammation, then this can give rise to practically any chronic disease that Americans are facing today. So that would include this man up here. So allergies, arthritis, asthma, autoimmune conditions, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, peptic ulcer, even thyroid disease, and so many others. So inflammatory disease, then, is when the inflammation becomes chronic disease. And this person's immune system, it starts actually attacking the body's own tissues. So some of these you're familiar with: rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel disease, lupus. You're familiar with these now common diseases. All right? So these diseases can actually affect any bodily organ, and in most cases, once one organ is impacted, then other systems become affected as well, or are at least more susceptible. So the classic sign of diseases of inflammation might include, well, actually, I said diseases of inflammation. It's inflammatory diseases. They're two different things. So that would be joint stiffness, swelling, pain, loss of range of motion. You might have rashes. There might be periods of remission and periods of flare-ups. That's when the activity of the disease is increased. All right, so now you have diseases of inflammation, and that's basically all the diseases that Americans are facing. So whether that's Alzheimer's disease or cancer or diabetes or eye disorders, heart disease, metabolic syndrome, obesity, these diseases increase the inflammation in the body. So kind of the underlying source of what's causing the problem. So what's the answer to all these challenges? Well, lifestyle can be both the cause and the cure of inflammation. Okay, so lifestyle can be both what? The cause and the cure. So a healthful diet and lifestyle can greatly prevent and reduce detrimental inflammation. So, in other words, whether you have systemic inflammation, autoimmune inflammation, or both, lifestyle, how we live, how we eat, how we sleep, how we move our body is going to be both the cause and the cure for inflammation. So this is really good news, don't you think? Yeah, because we have a role that we can play in our health, and God has a few things to say about how we can obtain our best health, which we're going to explore throughout the weekend. So Dennis Burkett states, the concept that Western diseases are lifestyle related and therefore potentially preventable and reversible is the most important medical discovery of the 20th century. But the truth is, this is not a 20th century discovery, is it? It's a 6,000-year revelation, because it was all spelled out for us in the garden. Yes? So God's diet and lifestyle prevents or reduces detrimental inflammation. It reduces our risk of complications due to chronic inflammation, and it substantially reduces our medical and medication expenses. It also improves our quality of life so that we can again enjoy doing those things that we have set aside due to health issues. So you may be asking, what's the catch? So here it is. The standard American diet is characterized by higher intakes of red and processed meats, lots of sweets, desserts, French fries, and refined grains, and all of this fuels inflammation compared to individuals who consume a diet with liberal amounts of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. What is that? Oh yeah, Taco Bell, there you go. McD's, Taco Bell, KFC, yeah. Not tuberculosis. Although you might be more susceptible to that by going there. No, I'm joking. To some degree. All right. So let's just talk about the American diet. So it tends to be high in animal products, yes? Yeah, and we have this big push right now that, it's the only way to get protein, right? And so animal products and flesh foods, they have inflammation in them, and then we eat the meat, and then we're getting this fatty acid composition. And it is full of endotoxins and hypoxanthine. So endotoxins, we talked about that a little bit earlier. It lasts about 4 or 5 hours. Then it can kind of subside, but then it's time to eat again. Well, what about hypoxanthine? Ever heard of hypoxanthine? Okay. It's an ene, right? What else has an ene at the end that we like? Caffeine. There you go. Okay. Nicotine. It's actually all in the same family. So when people struggle to get off meat, they really are struggling to get off meat because it is addictive. It's hypoxanthine that gives us this feeling, and when we don't have it, then we have the, like caffeine, the all gone feeling, like pick me up off the floor. I can't move anymore, right? And so if someone is trying to get off meat, give them some grace space, right? Because it is difficult. And if I know I'm talking to the choir right here, but maybe not everyone who's listening is of the same mindset. So when we eat meat, just remember the hypoxanthine is what we're actually addicted to. And also remember it takes 3 to 5 days to get that out of your system, just like caffeine or nicotine, okay? And also, I think it's important that we understand that meat or flesh food is not the only source of protein. If it grows, it has to have protein. Protein are the building blocks for growth, right? So even fruit has protein in it. Yes, that is the lowest amount of protein in our food, but it still has protein. But our vegetables are very high in protein. And a large percentage of the calories, because there's not very many calories in vegetables, right, come from protein. So, and then you have your nuts, your seeds, your legumes. These all are very good sources of protein. So on the other hand, plant foods are going to heal, they're going to repair, they're going to nourish the system. Plants contain lots of fiber. And fiber sends out a signal to the rest of the body saying, hey, we've got everything under control. Fiber's like an intestinal broom. So it's like, hey, we got everything under control. We can sweep everything up. We can deal with the toxins and the bacterias and the various things that aren't supposed to be in our food, and we can eliminate that out of the system. So when we take fiber with our food, naturally in our food, not fiber supplements, then this cascade of protection is begun. That's pretty cool, isn't it? That's the power that God has put in plants for us. Neat, right? I think it's awesome. All right, so fiber helps clean things up like a broom, as we were saying, and there's these little hairs on the intestinal tract. They're called microvilli, or just villi, or cilia. And so they like to kind of stand up and swim, if you will. As the food goes by, it starts collecting the nutrients. But with a standard American diet, guess what? Those little guys aren't standing up and swimming because we have a highly processed diet, and it's like glue, and it binds them to the walls, and they're not able to nourish the body, get the nutrients and nourish the body. And so even though we're an overfed nation, we are an undernourished nation as well. And so when we have fiber in the diet, it can actually help those little guys stand up and do their job again, and us actually feel really good. And fiber actually helps us, therefore, absorb our nutrients, our vitamins, our minerals, our antioxidants, which are all going to reduce inflammation. So if you are currently following a standard American diet, then maybe you can just start with adding 1 or 2 fruits or vegetables. I was talking with a lady last week, and she says, you know, I need to do your program, but I don't like anything from a plant. So I said, okay. I said, can we do little hello bites? Just introduce your palate to 1 vegetable. She picked green beans, so she's going to eat 1 piece of a green bean every day. It's a start. You're shaking your head, but it's a start. And at the end of 21 days, she's going to have a completely new taste bud panel, and that green bean's going to taste good. See? So we can work with people little by little. I have some of my, just talking about exercise, you know, sometimes it's painful to start moving, right? I have some people that start with 2 minutes, a lot of people who start just with 2 minutes of movement. I even had one lady start with 30 seconds. But you know how far she got up to, the one with 30 seconds? 30 minutes. Because just gradually building, right? And so it doesn't matter where we start. It matters, are we working toward our deepening our relationship with God and cooperating with Him, right? That's what it's all about. If we really have any other motivation, it's going to be very, very challenging. But when our motivation is to increase our relationship with God, it's pretty motivating. Can you see how that works? Yeah. What about if you're a meat eater? Where can you make a start? There's a nice coin phrase that's going around, and you sitting here probably don't eat a whole lot of meat, but it's Meatless Mondays. So just 1 day a week. Just try no meat for 1 day and see how that works. See how you feel. When you get that done, accomplished on a regular basis, then try Tasty Tuesdays with plants, etc. All right, so many of you sitting here know the ill effects of meat, but what about sugar? It's quiet. So, what do you call it? When it's grinded with bone. Okay. So it's not vegan or vegetarian. Okay. All right. I'm interested because it got really quiet. So that means that I'm probably going to step on the rest of your toes if I haven't already stepped on them. So just hang with me, all right? So sugar consumption does affect our blood sugar. Fat also affects the blood sugar, and combined, it's a recipe for insulin resistance. So insulin is a fat-storing hormone. So when extra insulin is produced, then there's this hormone dysregulation, and this is going to lead to further increase of fat storage and further increase of insulin resistance, and here's how the wheel goes, right? So insulin resistance is also known as metabolic syndrome, but this is also going to make other disease processes more complicated by having extra sugar in the system, including thyroid disease. But we could really name any of the diseases, and sugar is very inflammatory. It actually clogs our whole system. So once insulin resistance takes up residence, it's only a matter of time until a cascade of disease begins. It's only a matter of time until what? Okay, till a cascade of disease begins. So what is disease? Let's get a working definition. Disease is when your body is no longer working at ease, with ease, right? Therefore, it's called dis-ease. Makes sense, right? That's as basic as it gets. All right, so now let's work at another definition, a more specific definition. So sickness and disease are an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. What's that mean? What are the laws of health? Well, there are 10 commandments and there are 10 essentials or 10 laws for health. And so the Start a New You acronym is a great acronym for all 10. And God is so good because He has made all of these readily available to us. So they include things like sunlight and nutrition and rest and atmosphere, exercise, water, etc. And so as you cooperate with God, then He's going to lead you step by step through these to establish your best health. Now, you might look at that and feel completely overwhelmed, and you don't have to do that because God meets us where we're at, and then He leads us on. So start with one, get that put into action, form that new habit, and then work on the next. But all 10 of these do work synergistically together to bring you your best health. So it's not perfection, but it is progression, right? That's what God calls us to continue to progress. And we will have the story, just like I shared my story with you, you will have your story as well regarding your health journey. And I can't fit everything in today, so we'll talk more about these tomorrow, but that's a little snapshot of my books. So, as I was saying, they do work synergistically together. So just as the 10 commandments, if you break one, how many do you break? All of them. And so you've got to start somewhere, right? If you're a thief, well, then you need to work on stopping stealing, right? And so likewise, wherever your weakest link is, talk to God about it and ask Him to lead you step by step through the process to cooperate with Him. And really, this is the battlefield, right? This mind, this brain of ours, where we make our decisions, that's the battlefield, where we make our important decisions and choices. All right, so how can we put the information into practice? How can we start learning something new? And we do that by simply starting to apply that information. So today you can start a new you, one step at a time. So let's go back to our story regarding sugar and insulin resistance. So once we have learned about insulin resistance, then also remember same process as metabolic syndrome. Once that takes up residence, it's only a matter of time until you have this cascade of disease. What does that cascade look like? So insulin resistance requires high levels of insulin to be produced. And remember, that is a fat-storing hormone. So once you have that, then you have this altered hormonal state, and you're storing more fat, so it's very easy to gain weight. And weight gain itself produces hormones, and so again we have this cascade developing, which is going to be more insulin resistance, there's a decrease in insulin sensitivity, and that's going to lead to decrease in HDL. Now, HDL cholesterol. Now, at first you might think, oh, a decrease in cholesterol, that's a good thing. But this is HDL cholesterol. And HDL cholesterol, we want high. We're happy when it's high. So H for happy, H for high. And so we don't want it to start going low. So HDL is like garbage trucks going around in our blood and picking up all the trash. So if that's decreased, then what's happening? Is hanging around. More trash is hanging around, okay? So then that's going to lead to increased triglyceride levels within the blood, And once we have that, well, we have more altered hormonal levels, which is going to be further weight gain. Then our LDL cholesterol is increased, and LDL is our lousy cholesterol. We want it to be low, right? L for low or lousy. And so when it starts going up, then guess what? Our vessels start becoming damaged, and then we have inflammatory markers beginning to increase, and then we can have high blood pressure, and then that can lead to cardiovascular disease, which is only going to lead to further insulin resistance, and the wheel just goes round and round and round. Now, I know this isn't a very good wheel because it's more of a square or rectangle, but that's because I'm not techie. So here is the wheel. So the question is, how do we get off the wheel, right? And so that's what we're going to discuss in our next session after we take a break. Let's close with a word of prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we don't want to be a ball of inflammation. We want to radiate your health, your countenance, that is a picture of perfect health. And so we just ask that you give us a starting point. Where do we start in the cooperation with you? We thank you that you will give us those answers as we continue to seek your face. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.